Seems to be a rumor going around as part of the ESPN UFC deal is that there must be a title fight on a pay-per-view. Now, I don't know if that is true, but I know a lot of people in our community believe it. It's meant to be the reason that Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje fought for the BM "we don't do gimmick fights here" belt. And I remember a lot of our community saying they don't even care if the BMF belt was on the line or not. It was just one of those fights where on its own, it became a massive fight, right? It was a rematch that set in stone the standings of the lightweight division, the UFC's hardest division. Why am I bringing this up today? Because we're destined to have this problem at heavyweight. Either Tom Aspinall or Sergey Pavlovich, one of them is going to be forced into inactivity as the interim heavyweight champ, while we wait for Jon Jones to heal up, and then the interim champ is going to be stripped, and Jon Jones and Stipe are going to be fighting for a vacant heavyweight title. And I want to know why. Apparently, it's because of this dumb rumor that I just don't believe exists. In the ESPN era, we've had these moments. UFC 257, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 2. UFC 264, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 3. And I hear you out there, I see you in the comments. Dougie, that is the exception to the rule. That is Conor McGregor. It's different. The UFC will literally fire USADA so they can let McGregor get on the gear. They'll do anything for him. But McGregor isn't the only one they've done this for. UFC 272, Masvidal versus Covington, a pay-per-view sold purely on a WWE-style grudge match, a fight between friends, a glorified schoolyard punch-on. No fallout from the fans, no drama from the ESPN brass. Everyone was happy with that pay-per-view. UFC 279, another one, Nate Diaz versus Ferguson. It was originally set up to be Diaz versus Chimaev until Chimaev missed weight, and Nate, I'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. Diaz didn't want to take that fight. It also looks like Nate, I'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. Diaz doesn't want to fight Jake Paul in MMA either, but that is a story for another time. That card was set up as yet another pay-per-view purely built on star power. And once again, the ESPN brass, they didn't complain at all. And we know when the ESPN brass do, it always makes its way into the UFC media. When the UFC was pushing ahead during the global shutdowns, they told the UFC to stop and go on a 1-week break. When the Russians started their military operation, the ESPN brass told the UFC no more flags. And, and again, with what happened recently, no more flags again. And that's all coming from the brass over at ESPN. All these examples, why do we need to have the UFC set up this ridiculous problem at heavyweight or set up a gimmick BMF belt fight? To me, having the BMF belt in the UFC is just ridiculous. If the UFC want more belts, why not open up the divisions to every 10 pounds? 155, 165, 175, 185, etc., etc. Or just follow One Championship's example. They have many belts over at One Championship. The UFC already puts on grappling invitationals over on Fight Pass. Why not introduce a belt system to that, and then you could put them on there too? Or open up a kickboxing, boxing, Muay Thai division and set up different fights around the world. Again, you could follow One Championship. They have already done this. We just lost Francis Ngannou to boxing. More UFC fighters are now looking at boxing. There are ways that you can put on cards with more belts, but you don't have to go to that extreme level. Just picture this, okay? It's UFC 307. The pay-per-view is sold as a legacy match headlined by Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, and it has a 5-round co-main event of Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis, or a 5-round co-main event of Cyril Gane versus Jailton Almeida, or a 5-round co-main event of Dustin Poirier versus a returning Rafael Fiziev. All you have to do is stack the main and co-main event and make sure the co-main event is a juicy 5-round fight that's relevant to whatever division is happening at the time. Whatever storyline is happening in the divisions, just make sure that's a relevant fight. And then on UFC 308, you've got a spare champion that you didn't book up in UFC 307, and you can stack UFC 308. Either way, there are massive fights that happen throughout the year that you can use to stack a pay-per-view that doesn't have a belt on the line. There are massive fights. And look, it might take away from the fight nights if you book a massive co-main event. That makes a lot of sense. But do we really need as many fight nights as we have right now? Like, Can we not cancel 2 or 3 Apex events during the year? Do we really need Holly Holm versus Silva as a main event, or Dern versus Hill? Do these fights need to happen? Let me know down in the comments. What would you rather see from the UFC? Our new interim championship at heavyweight stripped so that Jon Jones and Stipe can go and fight for the undisputed belt and then both retire instantly, or just see a pay-per-view with a legacy fight and a stacked co-main event? Let me know down in the comments what you would rather see. Back to all of you, I appreciate reading every single comment. If you guys have been enjoying these videos, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button down there, and I will see you all in the next one.